okay? Because it is very good pot, and it is cheap, and it is everywhere. And so I got hooked on what was being passed around amongst my circle of creative friends. And I got very depressed, and I gave up on work, and I just didn't want to do anything, and I got listless, and I lost all my energy, and had basically a nervous breakdown. Mild one. I sat on the couch and just watched TV for about 3 months and collected social support, and it was horrible. But during that time, when I was rebuilding myself, I went back into old curiosities that I had about Eastern faiths, but just about other faiths in general. Reread the Bible, read the Quran for the first time, read the Tao Te Ching, Tibetan Book of the Dead. I wanted to really familiarize myself with these spiritual structures because I knew that something was missing in my life that was inherent, and it wasn't going to be provided by a romantic liaison. It wasn't going to be provided by fiscal satisfaction. I was missing something. And it wasn't screaming out to me, and it wasn't singing hallelujah, and it wasn't at the corner Baptist church. It wasn't just in this one specific mode or way of being. It was just an air of spiritualism in my life was missing. So I wanted to research everything I could just for personal reasons. And what was nice was people were saying, well, why don't you write a story about spirit stuff, Brooke, because you're always talking about it. And I didn't want to make it like, I didn't want to make something that was just clubbing people over the head with it, or again, just preaching to the choir who already believed in whatever they believed in. But did I want to include that as a very strong theme in whatever story I wrote that looked at problems of society and economics and politics and communication and technology and gender roles and all the other stuff? Yes. And when you read the series, you'll see that personal responsibility through spirituality is probably the greatest theme of the story. Originally, yes, we wanted to build a community around the story, and we knew that if the story and the presentation was good enough, people would gravitate towards it. And it's just amazed us that it's grown the way it has, and that they're so passionate, and from so many different age groups and demographics and locations around the world. And they're so passionate about what they believe in, and they want to share it, and they rant about, you know, philosophy and life and religion and everything else, and that's great. And I don't want to lose that. So we hadn't originally planned on, okay, as soon as it's done, we're going to do X, Y, or Z to keep them there. But yes, we are currently planning ways for how it finishes, how it continues from there, and how we can also create an actual space for these people that's not just about broken saints, but a space where these people feel safe, and something for them that they basically get to manage themselves. So if I'm getting you correctly, it's like if I'm being a cult leader and everyone said, oh yeah, we're drinking your Kool-Aid, would this still have validity? If it's a good story, I might be assuming, but if it's a good story, it wouldn't matter. You're just reinforcing something that's already there. That's what archetypal stories do. They reinforce something that you might already believe in, but it helps you get through the day. Because, hey, I might be really zealous right now, but I'll have my weak moments too, and I'll be inspired by other people's work. That's basically, again, preaching to the choir. I already know what they're saying, and I gravitate towards it, and my thinking's parallel or in agreement with it, but it helps. Like any good story, you see something that touches you, and you're like, this feels like a part of my life. This makes sense to me. And the reason I wanted to do it is because there aren't enough stories like this in the mainstream. In 1999, like I said, I was very happy to see, you know, mainstream studios releasing films that challenged reality, because people weren't doing that. You know, we can look at modern media today and watch the crap music videos and the crap TV shows, and the majority of it's crap. My friend Rex here will agree with me on the whole Buffy thing, because there's a reason it got a cult following around the show. It was speaking not only to teens but to adults in so many layers that people could relate to it and felt a sense of belonging and felt a sense of overcoming their own personal demons through this mythology that had been created by the series. I might be taking it like a step further or more intensely or to a more focused mindset, but it's the same thing, right? A series Bible and a real sense of a place somewhere where you've gone that's very much like your own. It's set in the real world. All the technology that we cover in the series is now. The culmination, what's going to happen in the climax, is possible and world-changing. And I certainly hope that some smart kid, after seeing it, tries it. Usually, majority, so the best way possible, the greatest old-fashioned way of finding something, word of mouth. They tell two friends, and they tell two friends, and they tell two friends. Otherwise, it's featured on portal sites like Macromedia, who supports Flash, or Apple mentioned it once. You've got reviews in major magazines. You've got sites like Wired.com, MP4, which is a branch off of Vivendi. Some major sites will link us, or fan sites will link us, or someone's blog might mention us and say, hey, it's a kind of funky thing, check it out, and you just get this growing viral campaign. You brought it up, so I'll tell the quick story. Yeah, we've had a production partner in LA who's trying to help us develop this into something we have control of as either an animated or a live action series. That's interesting. If we can keep total control over the copyright, that's great. I went down for a meeting a couple of months back, and there was an investor who was very, very interested. An investor from CCTV4, Communist China TV4, who said, we'd like to help you develop this into a series. And after a series of meetings, the coordinator came and basically put a check for $2.5 million on the table and says, we buy copyright. And I went, excuse me? We buy copyright. And I went, and I leave. And yeah, my young partners who have been raised in a little bit of affluence in North Vancouver, Canada, were like, you said no? And I said, yeah, I had to. Imagine the karmic recurrences of doing all this for free and then selling it off and having it become, marketed toys and underground black market goods in the Pacific Rim. That would be kind of bad, wouldn't it? You wonder how I reject it? I was raised by parents who are obsessed with money. I love them and all, but our only conversations are about T-bills and stocks and savings, and have only ever been about those things. And these are all the things I really wanted to talk about and learn about. Then I moved to Vancouver, and there's a bit of a counterculture there, to be sure, like you said, the ab busters and the kind of, clackwad sound, the protest vibe in the West. But primarily, no way. That's the problem. Everything there is trying to be like LA, or a squashed together version of LA, San Francisco, Seattle. And so it's Hollywood North, and you've got people getting, every fourth person is getting some sort of plastic surgery. It's all based on status and money. People are incredibly vain and shallow there. They reflect the aesthetic. I know this. People who live there know this, and they joke about it. The only culture in Vancouver is in the yogurt. And so I wasn't gonna just sit back and let it happen, man. Whoa, whatever. Ear. Right? We're in Ontario. I actually came just north of Toronto, an hour north, in a town called Sutton on Lake Simcoe. Lake Simcoe. Yeah, small town. That was where I was raised during high school. Still exposed to, and I loved the media. I went to the movies every weekend. I wanted to go to the big city. I wanted the big fashionable prizes. I wanted to matter, because TV was telling me I could matter if I had cool clothes, and if I had a good-looking girlfriend, and if I drove the coolest car, then I'd matter, then I'd be okay. But before that, I was raised in a tiny fishing village in Nova Scotia on the East Coast with really good people, and I didn't appreciate them as much, and I do now. Basically, there are chapters that totally focus on driving the story forward, and it's purely about dialogue between the characters or internal monologue. And there are others that are definitely more visual and are there to create this kind of hypnotic trip feeling. We like to take people on that ride. I don't think you can do all of one or the other, and it just happens to work out. The story lends itself to that. It totally makes sense. I want to say yes and give a nice rosy impression. I've always been, and I don't wear this badge with pride, I've always been a little bit of a lone wolf. I went to Flash Forward 2 years ago when we were first nominated, and I just didn't seem to mesh with everyone there talking about, oh, our new action script, oh, this, hey, oh, high five, let's pay a whole bunch of hundreds of dollars, and we're doing our thing, and yeah, Flash rules, Flash rules. I'm like, okay, this isn't me. I'm not about this. I just want to talk about some issues, man. I just want some passion. It's not about the tools. It's about what you have to say with the tools. But moments like this, the reason I'm here is because I came to a discussion on using digital tools to tell stories with news and with journalism back in February at the University of Minnesota, and met some good people. And that gave me hope. This city is excellent. What a great counterculture vibe, and passionate people who are educated and want to say stuff and know what the media is trying to do to them and is trying to skew it, trying to co-opt it for themselves, trying to be guerrilla with it. And yeah, that gives me hope. I just don't feel like I have a lot necessarily in my community, or in the Flash community, so to speak. But I think that online communication, this tool, this incredibly powerful tool, does have the potential, if enough artists get together and they have similar philosophies, to really make a difference. But we have to do it soon before, like every other medium, it gets co-opted for commercial concerns. Because when you think online, the average human being right now thinks shopping and porn. And that's the problem with all mediums, right? Not shopping and porn, but the idea that it gets co-opted and you think of it in a certain light. You think of movies, when someone says film, sure, I'd love to say yes, you know, Aronofsky or Lynch or Gilliam or whoever. But you think summer blockbuster. When someone says film, you initially think, oh yeah, movie's out. When you think book, it's like, you know, the Idiot's Guide to whatever. Or you just think, you think mainstream. You think music, you think Britney Spears. You don't want to, but that's the first thing that comes to mind because that's what's thrown down your throat every day. And so when you think online, unfortunately, it's been tainted. And I'm hoping that enough people get together and try to turn it back to something pure. And I guess that's everything. Thank you very much for coming.